It's round 2 of the BRT battle. Last week we were in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the Silver Line faced off against the Laker Line. Today we're in Washington, D.C. with the same question. Which of the capital's 2 BRT systems is better? Are they even BRT? Really quick, BRT stands for Bus Rapid Transit. It's a high-quality bus system that's supposed to be fast and frequent. It achieves speed by avoiding traffic through dedicated lanes and signal priority, but also by shortening the amount of time spent at stops. Level boarding, off-board fare payment, they all help with this. But many times agencies will slightly upgrade a bus route and then claim it's BRT. And we're going to ask ourselves if that's the case here in the nation's capital. Technically, we're not going to be in Washington, D.C. today. The transit system in D.C. expands across state lines into Virginia and Maryland, and in those 2 states is where we find our 2 buses. There's Metroway, operated by the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, same agency who runs Metro, and Metroway runs in Northern Virginia between Arlington County and the city of Alexandria. And then there's FLASH in Montgomery County, Maryland. FLASH is operated by RideOn, Montgomery County's bus operator. Both services have strengths and both have flaws. We're going to compare the 2, and we'll start with Metroway. Alright, so I'm at Pentagon City Station on the Metro yellow and blue lines. Behind me is a corridor. If I choose to go to the left, I will enter the Fashion Center at Pentagon City, a huge mall. You've got Lego store, Uniqlo, like luxury brands, food court. If I go to the right and go upstairs, I'll end up by some big box stores like Marshall's, Best Buy, Costco, but I'll also end up at the bus stop for Metroway, which is the first BRT route that we're going to take today. Pentagon City is a large commercial and residential area right next to the Pentagon in Arlington County, Virginia. So this is the Metroway bus stop at Pentagon City Mall. The shelter's not really different than any of the other bus shelters here, although there is a digital information screen, which is a step up from a normal Metro bus stop. Metroway runs down to Braddock Road Station in Alexandria. If you're familiar with the DC Metro, you'll probably think that's slightly strange, and if you're not, I'll explain in a little bit. But first, let's get familiar with the buses on this route. This is one of 13 New Flyer Excelsior XN40s, a 40-foot bus running on compressed natural gas. Check out the dark blue Metroway livery, one of my favorite bus liveries ever. The Metroway fleet is mostly dedicated, although I have seen the occasional regular WMATA bus on Metroway, and I do see the blue Metroway buses on other routes in the region quite often, particularly on the 3F and 3Y routes. Anyway, we begin to drive down towards Braddock Road. Our first stop will be the Crystal City Metro Station, which is also the next Metro stop. We will closely follow the Metro blue and yellow lines our entire journey, providing 2 more interchange opportunities with them, which is kind of funny. Metroway opened in August of 2014 as the first, quote, BRT route in the Washington metropolitan area, but also the first BRT in the state of Virginia. It follows the yellow and blue lines down this north-south corridor, making more stops along the way than the trains and bypassing the airport. Buses running parallel to rail lines, that's not unusual. It's actually very helpful for the last mile. You can get off the train and then take the bus to a destination in between train stations. That's how I use Metroway, usually when I'm shopping. But there is something ironic about it. The fact that Virginia's first bus rapid transit acts as a slower companion to the Metro. A ride on Metroway costs the same as any regular WMATA bus, $2.25, and payment is done on board. This is definitely points off, since it slows down the boarding process and adds time to the ride. Not that I've really ever seen huge crowds get on, but anyway. Some alleged BRTs, like the Silver Line in Grand Rapids that we looked at last week, are really just aesthetic improvements more than infrastructure improvements. However, it would not be fair to say that about Metroway. Metroway runs on a dedicated right-of-way for most of its journey, with high-quality stations on these dedicated bus roads. In Arlington County, it's known as the Crystal City Transitway. And let's check out one of these stations. So 15 minutes after leaving Pentagon City, we finally make it onto a dedicated busway. This is the Crystal City Transitway, one of two dedicated busways that the Metroway uses. And these busways, they have much bigger stations, or at least the Crystal City one does. There's a roof over your head, some sound barriers, digital signage, level boarding. These information screens are one of my favorite features on Metroway. I prefer information displays over looking at my phone, and it's just more accessible this way. So there are bus signals here, but as far as I can tell, they're just in sync with the regular traffic lights. We had to wait for quite a few, even on the short stretch of the busway that I've ridden so far. Across the street, which by the way is US Highway 1, there's a large bus garage for WMATA and Arlington Transit. Fun fact, there used to be an amusement park on this site, operated by a trolley company. Man, is there anything nicer than a road that's dedicated to buses? Well, rails maybe, but this is pretty nice too. At the intersection of Glebe Road and Potomac Avenue, the Crystal City Transitway ends, and we get a look at the special bus signal that allows Metroway to turn back onto the public street. South Glebe has a very similar design, just a little bit of a different color of the artwork. And there's actually a tiny little Lidl here, which is great because there were some groceries I needed to pick up anyways. So South Glebe is the last station in Arlington County, Virginia. After that, the Metroway enters the independent city of Alexandria, Virginia. It's also the last stop on the Crystal City busway. After South Glebe, the buses return to the regular street, and they enter what I think is kind of the worst part of the Metroway route. So this is Potomac Yard Station, and the Dash buses, they stop right in front of the station entrance, but not the Metroway. No, the Metroway gets a grassy little patch on the main road, quite a walk away from the station. And I get it, it's probably a decision made to speed up the route a little bit, but in this case, I'm wondering if the trade-off between convenience and speed was really worth it. Then again, there's 3 other stations where you can transfer to Metro. Here in Potomac Yard, we find what I think is the worst stop on Metroway. This stop is pretty sad. It's just on the side of the road, a sign kind of hidden by the leaves. The other side does get like a dedicated bus lane sort of ish. While many of the stations on this route are very nice, a bad stop like this does bring down the overall quality. Now that we're in Alexandria, we head on to our second dedicated section, this time in the median of US Highway 1. Signals at each intersection prevent cars from making left turns and colliding with the buses that are going straight. One thing though, I talk about signals a lot, don't get that confused with signal priority. Even though Metroway has its own signals, oftentimes it still has to wait for other traffic. Nevertheless, Metroway isn't the only bus route that benefits from this dedicated right-of-way. So this is what the dedicated bus section looks like in the city of Alexandria. Completely different style, but once again we have You know, a very spacious area, a roof over our heads, dedicated busway, this time in the middle of the street. This is US Highway number 1, also known as the Richmond Highway here in Alexandria. And what I really like about this one is that it's not only Metroway that uses it. Dash bus number 34, which is actually, I believe, the newest Dash bus route, also uses this dedicated busway. Unfortunately, still no signal priority. Emergency vehicles also have access to this unobstructed road, another benefit of transit projects like this. Metroway runs every 12 minutes on weekdays and every 20 minutes on the weekends. However, in my experience, the bus does not run nearly as regular as the schedule suggests, and sometimes there are bigger gaps. Good thing there's a roof here. Time to ride the last short section to the Braddock Road Metro Station. Overall, Metroway is pretty good. There's a few places it could be better, but it's much better than a regular bus route. Before I share my final thoughts, let's head up to Silver Spring, Maryland, to try out the other BRT system, FLASH. This trip begins at the Paul S. Sarbanes Transit Center, right across from the Metro and MARC commuter rail station at Silver Spring. The transit center is a huge hub, with buses from several different agencies coming together on multiple levels. FLASH originates here at the Sarbanes Transit Center, and this is a FLASH bus, operated by Montgomery County's RideOn bus service. FLASH has to have one of the most outrageous liveries of any bus I've ever seen. Full wrap over the windows too. It looks like every toy commercial when I was a kid. Alright, this is the Paul S. Sarbanes Transit Center in Silver Spring, Maryland. And this is one of my favorite bus stations in the entire area. Not only are there a ton of different buses that come through here, there are so many buses that the transit center is multiple floors. So on the ground floor as well as the second floor, you have regular city buses and Peter Pan intercity buses. And then on the third floor, that'll be the future Purple Line light rail station. The FLASH stop is kind of hidden up here on the second level. You can tell that it is the FLASH stop by the raised platform and by the card reader outside. FLASH operates on a pay-before-you-board model. A fun feature? There are these colorful mosaics at every station made by students. A full gallery of the mosaics is available online on their website, and I've put a link to it in the description below. There are currently 2 FLASH routes in service, both running along US Highway 29. The orange line, which we are on, runs every 15 minutes every day. The blue line also runs every 15 minutes, but only during the morning and afternoon rush hours on weekdays. There are multiple other FLASH lines throughout the county in design or in planning stages, but all of these are still years away from opening. Frankly, I don't understand why the Great Seneca Transit Network, which opened this September, isn't a part of the FLASH branding. It's really good. So what are the advantages of FLASH? Well, let's hear from them directly.
What makes BRT different? BRT features enhancements that improve efficiency and reliability, such as off-board fare collection. Riders will not have to wait for others to pay their fare before boarding. Simply pay at the payment station, then board BRT at any door when it arrives. Level boarding. Boarding BRT will be easier and quicker for strollers and riders with disabilities. You won't need to mount your bike outside BRT, just bring it on board. Getting on BRT is quick and easy for everyone. BRT makes fewer stops than a traditional bus, reducing the time spent at stations and allowing you to get where you need to go quickly.
So I got off at Oakleaf Drive. There's a few more stops northbound, but from what I can tell, all the stops kind of look the same. So I wanted to show you what a typical Flash station looks like first, and then we'll kind of talk about the service. Not a typical road for BRT, one lane both ways. I mean, most of the journey so far has been on a highway, but this is a quiet residential street, and then you get a station like this. Once again, here at the station, you see all the facilities for off-board fare payment, including the Smart Trip scanner, as well as a ticket machine that lets you add fare. And of course, they have these mosaics here. I really like these. They add a very nice touch to the stations. So there are two types of buses that run on the Flash orange and blue lines. There's the articulated Nova buses, and then there's the regular Gillig buses like the one I just rode. My thoughts on Flash? Let's start with the positives. First of all, we went really fast. Like, that only took a couple of minutes to get here. Our top speed in between stops was really great. Another thing that I really appreciated was it just stops at every stop. You don't have to request a stop. So it's more like a train in that sense. I mean, the stations are nice. They're very modern. You can tell that a lot of effort was put into the design. I don't know how pleasant they are in the extreme heat like today or in the winter because the covered section is not that great. But you know, it's better than a regular bus stop. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that it stops somewhere else from the other buses on this street. I really like when that's all consolidated and the regular buses can just use the BRT stops. But that's a minor complaint. I think more major is the fact that, yes, we went fast today, but it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I didn't see any bus lanes. We did wait at pretty much every signal that we passed. Something tells me that this is a route that would get very crowded during rush hour in just a couple of hours, and then I'm not so sure that it'll be that fast. And I checked satellite footage. I believe there's no bus lanes the entire route. Another thing is the thing about bringing bikes on board. I mean, I didn't try it and I didn't ask, but that seems, at least on the Gillig that I was riding, that seems kind of difficult to do. And then there's the issue of the route. So there's the orange line, which runs all day to Briggs Cheney, but then there's also the blue line that only runs during very limited peak hours that goes to Burtonsville. But then there's also orange line service that stops at the FDA, but then most of them don't. It's just not super clear, and I think points off for that. Walked over to the next stop, which is White Oak. The Flash does continue a few more stops northbound, like I said, but to be honest, I am not feeling a strong desire to go to a park and ride halfway up to Baltimore. So which is better? In terms of infrastructure, Metroway definitely has Flash beat. The dedicated bus roads are impressive, and they're an important part of speeding up the route. However, Flash definitely scores a few points against Metroway too. The boarding process is smoother since you can pay before you board and use more doors. Plus, I think the fact that Flash runs on a route not already served by the Metro makes it slightly more useful. Not that Metroway isn't useful, but Flash runs to destinations previously only served by slow buses, which I think gives it an advantage. And Flash's expansion plans are more ambitious. While Metroway expanded a lot when it first opened, I've never heard any plans for a second route. Ultimately though, neither are true BRT. Both miss some key aspects that I think would make them truly rapid. At the end of the day, both are buses that can be affected by traffic, and they have the capacity of, well, a bus, not a train. But that doesn't mean it's all bad. Let me take Metroway for example. Since I use Metroway more often and it has the dedicated roads, I think it's the winner in today's BRT battle. And honestly, Metroway to me is what regular buses in this region should be like. I live in the District of Columbia, and we have so many congested bus routes. Routes 31 and 33 in Georgetown come to mind. Or the E4 near Fort Totten. It's so slow, one time I got off and walked a mile, beating the bus to its destination. The Metro is great in DC, but it doesn't go everywhere. If we had more buses like Metroway running on the street when they have to, but in real dedicated lanes when they can, we would have one of the best bus systems in the country. What if instead of calling it BRT, we just called it a good bus? Something that we want more of. Does demanding better transit start with toning down how we talk about it? It's food for thought. Anyways, next week we will go to Mexico City, where we will ride Metrobus and Mexibus, their version of bus rapid transit. I won't spoil anything other than the fact that I was very impressed. Find out why next week. Subscribe to Trains Are Awesome in the meantime so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching today. We'll see you next time.